Welcome to this edition of News Today. Without delay, let's explore today's main headlines. The National Workshop on Role of Panchayati Raj Institutions in Addressing Gender-Based Violence was recently organized. The Speaker of the Maharashtra Legislative Assembly dismisses all petitions seeking the disqualification of MLAs. The Supreme Court of India holds that judicial officers' service conditions must be uniform across the country. WHO's International Classification of Diseases 11 introduces a Module 2. Denmark announces the Green Fuels Alliance India initiative. Tea Association of India calls for the introspection and resilience of Indian tea industry. Starting with today's first news, the National Workshop on Role of Panchayati Raj Institutions in Addressing Gender-Based Violence was recently organized. During the workshop, Panchayats Free from Gender-Based Violence, a handbook for elected representatives, was also released. Having said this, let's understand the need of addressing gender-based violence in rural India. First and foremost, there is a wide prevalence of sensitive issues like child marriage, human trafficking, and domestic violence in rural areas. Moreover, addressing the issues of gender-based violence in rural areas is important for fulfilling India's commitments under international conventions like the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women and Convention on Rights of Child. Also, gender-based plan addressing gender-based violence will promote gender equality and help achieve Sustainable Development Goal 5. Further, localization of Sustainable Development Goals Theme 9 aims at women-friendly villages, ensuring protection and economic and inclusive growth of women. Now the question is, what role do Panchayati Raj institutions play in addressing gender-based violence? Integration of women's issue in the Gram Panchayat Development Plan ensures gender-based plan. Also, Panchayati Raj institutions help in providing legal literacy and counseling services to vulnerable people. Notably, they organize Mahila Sabha to ensure women's participation in decision-making process. Other ways in which Panchayati Raj institutions help in addressing gender-based violence include promoting skill development and livelihood opportunities for women, conducting leadership training program for elected women representatives, organizing safety audits to create safe spaces, and strengthening the convergence with civil society and self-help groups for addressing gender-based violence.
Coming to the next news. Recently, the Speaker of the Maharashtra Legislative Assembly has dismissed all petitions seeking the disqualification of MLAs. The Speaker rejected disqualification of members under anti-defection law as the whip was not physically served to them and there were no other valid reasons. Now let's know about the anti-defection law. The anti-defection law, or the 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution, was added by the 52nd Constitution Amendment Act 1985 to prevent political defections. The disqualification happens if a member voluntarily gives up his party membership or votes or abstains to vote in the House contrary to the direction issued by his political party, and such act has not been condoned by the party within 15 days. An independent member becomes disqualified if he or she joins any political party after such elections. A nominated member becomes disqualified if he or she joins political party after the expiry of 6 months from the date on which they take the seat. However, there is an exception as the law allows a political party to merge with or into another party provided at least 2/3 of its legislators is in favor. The chairman or the Speaker of the House has the absolute power in deciding such cases. In the Quito-Holohan case, the Supreme Court held that the Speaker's decision under anti-defection law is subject to judicial review. Now, what is the meaning of the word whip? Well, in Parliament parlance, a whip may refer to a written order for party members to follow a certain direction or a designated official of the party who is authorized to issue such a direction. The term originates from the British practice of whipping in lawmakers to follow the party line.
Moving on, the Supreme Court of India held that judicial officers' service conditions must be uniform across country. To ensure uniformity in service conditions of judicial officers, the Supreme Court has instructed all high courts across India to establish a committee for service conditions of the district judiciary. This two-judge committee will oversee the implementation of orders related to pay and other benefits as per the Second National Judicial Pay Commission. The Supreme Court rejected the argument that the pay and allowances of judicial officers and other government officers should be equivalent based on the separation of powers doctrine. This doctrine requires that the principal institutions of the state, the executive, legislature and judiciary should be divided to safeguard citizens' liberties and guard against tyranny. Having said this, let's take a closer look at India's judicial system. The Indian Constitution has provided for a single integrated system of courts. The Supreme Court of India is the apex court and the high courts are the highest courts at the state and union territory level. Lower courts form the third tier of this Indian judicial system. Each state is divided into judicial districts presided over by a district and sessions judge, which is the principal civil court of original jurisdiction. These courts can try all offences including those punishable with death. High courts have administrative control over district courts in their jurisdiction. In our next news, WHO's International Classification of Diseases 11 introduced a Module 2. The Module 2 of the supplementary chapter on traditional medicine conditions under the International Classification of Diseases 11 is dedicated to Ayurveda, Siddha and Unani data and terminology. It encompasses more than 500 codes, and infectious diseases like malaria and lifestyle diseases like chronic insomnia are also included under the module. Now let's understand what exactly is the International Classification of Diseases of WHO. The classification is the international standard for systematic recording, reporting, analysis, interpretation, and comparison of mortality and morbidity data. It also includes a dedicated chapter on traditional medicine. Previously, International Classification of Diseases 11 included Module 1, which covers traditional medicine conditions originating in ancient China that are now commonly used in countries like Japan and Korea. This classification came into effect in January 2022. The International Classification of Diseases 11 is considered quite significant as it provides a list of diagnostics categories to collect and report on traditional medicine conditions in an internationally comparable manner. It also links traditional medicine practices with global conventional medicine's norms and standard development. Moreover, it helps in integrating traditional medicine into insurance coverage and reimbursement systems in line with WHO objectives relating to universal health coverage. Before moving on, let's take a look at some of India's major initiatives for enabling interoperability of health data on traditional medicines. The National Ayush Morbidity and Standardized Terminologies Electronic or Namaste portal provides standardized terminologies and morbidity codes for Ayurveda, Siddha and Unani systems of medicine. The Ayush Health Information Management System of India is a comprehensive IT platform to effectively manage all functions of healthcare delivery systems and patient care in Ayush facilities.
Coming to the next news. Recently, Denmark announced the Green Fuels Alliance India initiative. Before we discuss the news further, let's know about green fuels. Well, green fuels are also called hydrocarbons or biofuels, which are produced from biomass sources through a variety of biological and thermochemical processes. Now coming to this initiative, it is part of Green Strategic Partnership signed in 2020 between India and Denmark. Its primary objective is to promote sustainable energy growth in India by encouraging collaboration among businesses, government entities, research institutions of both the countries. This initiative is inspired by initiatives like India-Denmark Energy Partnership and joint R&D efforts on green fuels. Let's briefly go through the goals and significance of this initiative. It will strengthen the collaboration in sustainable energy solutions, advance joint goals towards carbon neutrality, enable renewable energy production in India towards ambition to be global leader in green energy value chain. It will also help in accelerating net zero emissions by 2070. Lastly, it will foster innovation, collaboration and partnerships among firms, businesses and government. Now let's take a look at other such initiatives by India. The US-India Strategic Clean Energy Partnership, Green or Clean Hydrogen India and Saudi Arabia, India-Australia Green Hydrogen Task Force, Global Biofuels Alliance forged by Brazil, India and United States, and lastly, Quad's Climate Working Group for Clean Energy. Coming to the next news, the Tea Association of India has called for the introspection and resilience of Indian tea industry. It stated that the tea industry is experiencing challenges similar to dark phase it faced 2 decades ago, where the market slumped drastically. The challenges faced by tea industry can be understood if you take a look at the costs of vital inputs, which grew at 9 to 15% during the last decade, while the tea prices rose by 4%. The widening gap between demand and supply is also another challenge. The decline in the quality to make tea affordable, stagnated and uncertain exports are the other challenges. Now let's take a look at the steps that have been taken in the direction. Formation of self-help groups or farmer producer organizations through Tea Board. Mini tea factories set up to encourage entrepreneurs. Tenders floated for fixation of price sharing formula for price of green leaves supplied between manufacturers and growers. One more step is the enhancement of remission of duties or taxes on export products for tea exports. And lastly, the launch of a mobile app called Chai Sahyog for better price realization. Coming to the tea industry in India, well, India is the second largest tea producer, the largest black tea producer, and the 4th largest exporter of tea in the world. The tea industry employs nearly 1.16 million workers directly, and small tea growers contribute to nearly 52% of the total produce. The state of Assam produces about 55% of the total tea production in India. The Tea Association of India is predominantly an association of North Indian tea producers in organized sector of Indian tea industry. It was formed in 1956 and is headquartered in Kolkata. Its objectives include the promotion and protection of trade, commerce, and industries associated with tea, advising and rendering assistance to members of association, and lastly, representing members before industrial tribunals and the tea board. The place in the news for today is Ecuador, the capital of which is Quito. Ecuador has declared nationwide emergency following the escape of a high-profile prisoner. Ecuador is a South American country opening to the Pacific Ocean in its west. It is bordered by Colombia in the north and Peru in the south. It includes the Pacific archipelago of Galapagos Islands. Let's briefly discuss its geographical features. Its highest peak is Chimborazo. Cotopaxi, Reventador, and Sierra Negra are its major volcanoes, while its major rivers are Pastaza, Nepo, and Morona. It is situated on the equator from which it derives its name. It has a humid tropical climate.
As we conclude today's main news, let's take a look at some quick updates. Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit, which over the years has emerged as a key tool of para-diplomacy, was inaugurated. Para-diplomacy, also known as state diplomacy or subnational diplomacy, denotes the ability of subnational governments to engage in international relations. Modern monetary theory argues that countries that issue their own currencies can never run out of money the way people or businesses can. As long as there is unemployment, it calls for government spending without being concerned about fiscal deficit. The monetization of fiscal deficit aligns with this theory. World Employment and Social Outlook Trends 2024 report was released by International Labour Organization. The International Labour Organization is only tripartite UN agency with government, employer and worker representatives formed in 1919. The report highlighted that macroeconomic environment deteriorated significantly over 2023. Ministry of Textiles under National Technical Textiles Mission is organizing Fostering Innovations in Technical Textiles Hackathon. Technical textiles are manufactured for their technical performances and functional properties rather than aesthetic and decorative features. A cannabis-based drug for epilepsy has been approved by Drug Controller General of India. The drug contains tetrahydrocannabinol or THC content below 0.1%. Epilepsy is chronic non-communicable disease of brain. Many parts of Odisha are reportedly suffering from lead contamination. Sources of lead exposure include mining and smelting, recycling of electronic waste and lead acid batteries, plumbing and lead paint. Lead poses several health risks, including cognitive impairments, developmental delays, and behavioral disorders in children. Indian Navy unveiled India's first indigenously manufactured unmanned aerial vehicle called Drishti 10 Starliner. It is an advanced intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance platform. Nigeria has destroyed $11.2 million worth seized elephant tusks. African elephants are largest animals walking on earth. They are of two types, the endangered savanna elephants and the critically endangered forest elephants. Before we go, it's time to put your knowledge to the test in today's segment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed this edition of News Today. To get the answers to today's quiz and to download the PDF of News Today, make sure to check out the links in the description below.